Now moving on to Book 3, Sutra 1. These are the internal practices. Dharana, right? We know the 8 limbs of yoga are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So we're looking at these. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Dharana is the binding of the mind to one place, one object, or one idea. So your chittam, your sum total of your mind, is bound by one thing, and it sits concentrated in one place. This is called the practice of dharana. So in dharana, you are training your mind to concentrate. So let's say your meditation practice consists of sitting still. The mind wanders, you catch it, and you bring it back. Then it wanders again, you catch it, and you bring it back. And then it wanders again, and you catch it and bring it back. And so on, and so on, and so forth, until you can actually hold it steady for a little bit. The ability to hold that thought steady gradually increases over time. This is dharana, this practice. So if you have a meditation practice where you're sitting down to meditate, and then the mind goes off and you come back. Also, if you are sitting down to meditate and you are steady and still, and the mind is like whoosh, and you're watching it, it is still dharana. You get that sweet spot because what you get is that separation of awareness. So that's why you feel so, But after a while, when you can hold the mind steady. So I'm going to explain to you what holding the mind steady means. First, we need to fix the mind on something concrete. That's why we have trataka. Concrete objects, symbols, idols, candles, mandalas, an altar. That is very nice to develop our concentration. If you can close your eyes and go within, then you have concrete objects such as the breath or a mantra that you recite over and over and over in your head. Those are very concrete objects to develop concentration. If you are working with the breath, if you are working with a mantra, you can try to do a count with it. So one of my yoga teachers, Swami Ashokananda, he used to say when he did the mantra, he would recite the mantra, oh, da, 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 1, da, 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 2, da, 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 3. And then if the mind got distracted, he would catch it and start again at number 1. And he said some days it was 1, 1, 1, because the mind kept getting distracted. And other days, he would be able to count very, very high. He never actually told me how high he went. But he said, some days I could go on and on and on. And mind was very, this is a way to develop concentration. It's also why you have meditation aids, like a rosary or a mala or prayer beads. Those are there to help bind your mind to one object. You're using your senses to help you. Eventually, you will withdraw. When we teach yoga to kids, we use the fingers and we use the mantra. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. It's a voice, it's tactile, it's visual. So for kids, they're allowed to use their senses, but you're controlling where their sensory input goes. And here's a tip, here's an extra bonus teaching moment. If you are planning to teach kids, before you can get them to sit down and do Peace Begins with me, you need to make sure that they jump and jiggle and wiggle and shake and go upside down in a down dog and get a little bit out of breath. Then you wind them down with a few deep breaths, and then they'll do it. And they won't do it for long. But if they're sitting still, and even if they're shuffling in their seat, but they're sitting still, you have the child. That is a child's version of sitting in one place. A child can never be all zzz. It's not the way children were built. They're growing, so they're very rajasic. They're very wiggly. So it's okay that they wiggle and they shuffle and they move around. Even if their eyes are open, but they're shuffling, but they're not talking, oh, that's a win. Okay, so remember that for all you moms with little children. So if you practice concentration with your mantra, with an object, with a symbol, eventually you don't need that physical object inside of you. It becomes with you all the time. So if you are focusing on a mandala, eventually you don't need the physical mandala. You can close the eyes and you can actually see that within, and your mind is very concentrated on it. And when you can hold that concentration for about 3 seconds, you have mastered concentration. So that moves us now into meditation. Meditation is the continuous flow of cognition towards that object. So coming back to my first example, in dharana, okay, so I'm going to use this example. In dharana, you have a thought, and then you get distracted, you bring it back, you have the same thought. It gets distracted, you bring it back, you have the same thought. And then it's kind of doing this, and then it lengthens, and then it goes out, comes back, and then it lengthens. And then it goes out, and it comes back, and then it lengthens. And then eventually, you can hold it for about 3 seconds. In dhyana, the thought flows, and it flows, and it flows. So it's the same flow of the same thing. That's why it's called a continuous flow of cognition towards the object. And this is only 3 minutes. This is according to the teachings of Master Shivananda. It takes 3 seconds wholeheartedly to hold your mind in full concentration, to bind it, and to be able to repeat that process. For 3 minutes, you're in the state of dhyana, continuous flow. And in that continuous flow, whatever is your object of meditation, its essence starts to reveal itself. I'll give you an example. You're walking down the street, and you walk down the same street every day, and there is a beautiful garden that you pass. And in that garden, there is one particular bush that grows beautiful flowers. And one of those flowers is kind of growing up and out and stands out amongst all the others. You walk past it, you admire it, you carry on your day. You walk past it, you look at it a little longer every day because you're admiring it, and then you walk past it. Right? This is how you develop concentration. So you see the flower, you move. You see the flower, you move. You see the flower, you move. But it's only when you stop and actually look at that flower for an extended period of time, you start to notice deeper elements of that flower. You become aware of each of the patterns on each individual petal. You become aware of the color of the pollen, the stigma, the stem. You go so deeply into it. And then in meditation, this is the same thing. Let's say that flower is the object of your focus. Without that physical flower, you go so deeply into it that its essence starts to reveal itself to you. That is the flow of cognition. Does that make sense? So concentration, you're just trying to keep your mind fixated on the flower. In meditation, you're in a complete flow. An exchange is happening between you and this flower. How do you know you're in this state? Well, if you sit down to meditate and an hour goes by with feeling like it's 2 minutes, that's one way of knowing. Coming out and just feeling a great sense of peace is another way of knowing. The thing is, you cannot compare your meditation experience to anybody else's meditation experience. You simply cannot. Some people will have visions. Some people will say, oh, I have this sweet spot of meditation. And all that's going to do is make you think, well, I don't quite have that. What's wrong with me? And then you get disheartened in your meditation practice. The other thing is you can never compare your meditation practice today with yesterday or tomorrow, because there's so many variables in your life that change. You might go out for a very heavy dinner. That's going to affect your meditation practice tomorrow. You may feel a little bit sick. That's going to affect your meditation practice tomorrow. You may be completely fasted and rested and in a retreat with no distractions. You will have a very different meditation experience. So done is better than perfect, and don't have expectations on how your meditation should go. Even if you meditate for 2 minutes and you feel more peaceful as a result, that is okay. Some people go around and they say, oh, every time I sit down to meditate, it's almost like my mind thinks more than it would in my regular life. And maybe it's because your regular life is so busy, you can only manage your life by focusing on the task at hand. So you're very present. So when you sit down to meditate, it seems like it's a big fat mind circus and a carnival in there. Good, this is good. Maybe it's just a purging. Maybe it's like nothing to do with anything suddenly pops up. Oh, you didn't call your mother. You should call your mother. Oh, you forgot to pay that bill. Oh, you did this. Oh, this happened. Again, when this comes up, this is your mind serving you. Only because you've given it space, it's finally purging, regurgitating. Look, I'm going to send you all these reminders because it's getting really dense in here. And so I'm trying to take it out, take it out, take it out, take it out. So if it is helpful, one tip can be have a notebook and spend the first 5 minutes purging. So you sit down and you're like, okay, okay, written down. What's next? Concentrate, concentrate. Oh, this has come up. Okay, it's down. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's out of the mind. It's on paper. And then after 5 minutes of doing that, okay, take a deep breath and see if you can concentrate. Sometimes it's easier, but in my history of teaching this to people, it can also be, oh, well, once I got into the mode of regurgitating thoughts, I couldn't actually go peaceful. I kept regurgitating thoughts and I kept regurgitating thoughts. To which I say, good, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Regurgitate, regurgitate, regurgitate. Have a list that's 100 pages long. Eventually, it will stop. That's how much you are burdening your consciousness. Let it out. And then it's all on paper. If you can't sit still anymore, then go through your list. And just like cleaning out the closet, you can see what can you chuck. If it's a lot of work items, what is high priority? What is low priority? What can you delegate? What can you say no to? It works the same way. So does this make sense? Does it kind of give you now more of a context of how meditation goes? Yeah? Suddenly meditation doesn't seem like this big, scary unknown. It feels like I can do this. I can actually work with my mind. This works. This is simple. And it doesn't have to be so self-judgy. Oh, my mind is so busy. I can't meditate. No, I've got a ton of things in there. Let's purge it out and clean it up. And let's have the right attitude. Let's not fight with the mind. Let's make the mind my friend. My mind is like my 2-year-old toddler. Let's not judge it. Let's work with it. Let's be a bit compassionate. Okay, there's a whole set of negative thoughts in there. Let's write these down, or let's put them in the front of our mind and unpack it. First of all, what are these negative thoughts? Usually we get so stressed out that we're having negative thoughts that we try to repress it. I shouldn't think this way. This is horrible. I need to do positive thinking, positive thinking, positive thinking. That's when you get into trouble of false positive thinking. There's this whole movement that says positive thinking is bad for you, right? There's a lot of people that say, oh, those optimists, those people that think positive all the time, they're fake. They don't know what real life is. They don't know what real hurt is. And it's true. Positive thinking can be another way of spiritually bypassing. So don't do Pratipaksha Bhavana for the sake of it. Okay, I'm having negative thoughts. Let's observe without judging. What here can we organize it, right? Like recycling. What is compostable? What is easy to throw? What needs to be broken down further and reprocessed and recycled? What needs to hang around in our house for a while until we actually call the experts to help us dispose of it, right? Like your white goods. That's really exactly how it happens in the mind too. So there are lots of signs to meditation. But remember, they are signs, right? You're on the journey to the final destination. So just because you pass a sign, like you have a divine vision, or you hear a message from a long lost beloved, or you get some great vision of light or peace, know that that is a sign. It is not the destination. So don't turn around the next day and be like, oh, I had a vision. I want that vision again. No, the reason why you don't have that vision the next day is because you're moving forwards from it. You're not stuck at the sign. Mecca is 20 days away. You're not staying there. You're moving forwards. That's why you cannot compare your meditation from yesterday and tomorrow. Which brings us to the final limb of yoga, Samadhi. Samadhi is defined as contemplation, absorption, or superconscious state. So if you can hold meditation for 3 hours, you will get Samadhi. 3 minutes of concentration to be mastered in 3 seconds to be mastered in concentration. 3 minutes to be mastered in meditation. 3 hours to be mastered in Samadhi. Wow, that seems so attainable, right? It's not a lot. It takes a lot to be able to get to that state. In my most austere of practices, I could only do 2 hours. And ever since then, nothing. This is why monastic life, you have to physically withdraw from life to get there. But what happens when you get there? You have to go back into life and serve. So if you don't have the grounding of yama and niyama, There's no point running away in the name of spirituality. You have to face life. You have to face life. So it brings us to Samadhi. Samadhi is the same meditation when there is the shining of the object alone, as if devoid of form. So coming back to that beautiful flower example, where you're now completely in connection with the flower, and you become so concentrated in the flower that the form disappears and its essential spirit reveals itself to you. And that essential spirit is the same that is the spirit inside of you. And you and the flower are one. This is yoga, union. Individual consciousness unites with cosmic consciousness, as if the two of you are one. Union. This is Samadhi. Another example that I was taught was as if you had a bottle of water and concentration. Okay, so you've got a bottle of water and you are in the ocean, and the bottle is your vehicle, which is your body mind, and the water inside is your consciousness, your essence. And the practice of concentration and all the 8 limbs of yoga is literally to remove the lid. The lid, the obstacle, is the ego. That's concentration. That's all the practices of yoga. And then, okay, this is empty. When you pour the bottle and the water is in the bottle, but also in the ocean, there's that line, that connection. This is meditation. And then when all the water is out, the water is part of the ocean. It is not bottled water anymore. It becomes ocean water. That is Samadhi. And I see that we are out of time. So we'll start tomorrow with the pranayama practice. So have a light breakfast. Okay, see if you can eat your breakfast much earlier, at least maybe by 7:30 latest, have some breakfast. Or go on an empty stomach if you can wait that long. When we start at 9 o'clock, we'll do about 15-20 minute practice, and then I'll let you go off and you can eat while being online, okay? So I'd like to close with our mantra. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May the whole world be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May our families, friends, and loved ones be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May all those who have hurt us and all those that are suffering be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.